Real English Lounge.
The art of everyday English.
I want to share something that happened to a friend of mine who was learning English. She was in a meeting with some colleagues, and someone asked if she wanted to join them for lunch. And she said, "I would be delighted to accompany you."
That is grammatically perfect.
Completely perfect. Every word correct. And everyone in the room paused for just a second. That small pause where people are recalibrating. And then they moved on, and she felt it. She knew something was off, even though nothing was technically wrong.
Because nobody actually says, "I would be delighted to accompany you."
Nobody. You say, "Yeah, sounds good," or "Sure, let me grab my coat," or "Absolutely, give me 2 minutes." Something that sounds like a human being in a real situation, not a sentence from a textbook.
And that gap between correct English and natural English is what we're talking about today. Welcome to Real English Lounge. I'm Claire.
I am Ethan, and today we are talking about what actually makes English sound natural, what real speakers do that textbooks almost never teach, and how to close the gap between knowing English and sounding like you live in it.
Before we start, our usual challenge. If this podcast is helping your English, please subscribe on YouTube and leave a comment below.
Today's comment challenge: tell us one English phrase you learned in a textbook that you later discovered nobody actually uses. One example in the comments. We genuinely want to know.
Level check. This is B1 to B2, and this episode is a little different. Instead of one main topic, we are going to cover several specific features of natural spoken English, with real examples throughout.
Later we have the word tour, but today the whole episode is already full of real language. So pay attention to how we say things, not just what we say.
Let's start with the most important thing. Ethan, what is the difference between correct English and natural English?
Correct English follows the rules. Natural English follows the habits of real speakers. And real speakers break the rules constantly. Or rather, they follow a different set of rules that nobody wrote down.
The unwritten rules.
The ones you absorb from listening, not the ones you study from a book.
Let's start with something very simple. Contractions and reductions. Textbooks teach full forms. I am, I will, I cannot, I do not, I would. Real speakers almost never say the full forms in casual conversation.
I'm, I'll, I can't, I don't, I'd. The contracted form is the default. The full form is the exception.
And when you use full forms in casual speech, I will see you tomorrow, I cannot do that, it can sound stiff, formal, in a way that does not match the situation.
Like you're reading from a script.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just contractions. There are reductions, sounds that almost disappear in fast natural speech. Want to becomes wanna. Going to becomes gonna. Have to becomes have to. These are not lazy. They are normal features of how English sounds when real people speak it.
And if you have only ever heard slow, clear classroom English, fast natural speech can sound like a completely different language.
Because words blend together, sounds drop out. The rhythm changes completely.
Which is one of the reasons listening to real English, not scripted, not slowed down, is so important. Your ear has to get used to the real sound of the language, not just the textbook version.
The next thing, filler words and discourse markers. These are the small words and phrases that real speakers use to think, connect ideas, and signal what is coming next. And textbooks almost never teach them because they look untidy on paper.
Words like, you know, I mean, kind of, sort of, like, right, actually, basically, honestly.
When you use these naturally and in the right places, they make you sound fluent. They give you thinking time without silence. They signal to the listener that you are still talking, still processing, still there.
And when you are too clean, when every sentence is perfectly formed with no fillers, no hesitations, no restarts, it can actually sound unnatural, like you rehearsed everything.
Native speakers do not speak in clean, complete sentences. They start thoughts and redirect. They trail off. They use, you know, as punctuation.
You know what I mean?
Exactly that. And you know what I mean is itself a discourse marker. It invites the listener to confirm they are following. It keeps the conversation connected.
But there is a balance. Too many fillers and you sound uncertain. The right amount and you sound human.
The right amount is what you absorb from listening, not what you calculate.
Here is something that surprises a lot of learners. There are grammatical structures that textbooks mark as incorrect, but that real, educated, fluid speakers use all the time.
Like what?
Starting a sentence with and or but. Textbooks say never start a sentence with a conjunction, but real writers and speakers do it constantly. And it works. It creates rhythm. It connects ideas in a way that flows.
Or ending a sentence with a preposition. That is something textbooks say you should not do. But in spoken English, where are you from sounds completely natural. From where are you sounds like a translation from another language.
Singular they. Using they to refer to one person of unknown or unspecified gender, he or she is technically correct, but sounds very formal and clunky. Someone left their bag. That is natural. Someone left his or her bag. Almost nobody says that.
The point is that natural English is not wrong English. It is English that has evolved through use, through millions of conversations, through a living language doing what living languages do.
And if you hold yourself to a standard that real speakers do not hold themselves to, you will always sound slightly off, even when you are technically correct.
Let's talk about responses, because one of the clearest signs of textbook English versus natural English is how people respond in conversation.
What do you mean?
When someone says something good happened to them, a textbook response might be, "That is very positive news." A natural response is, "Oh, that is great. Well done." Or, "No way, that is brilliant." Or just, "Yes," said with the right energy.
Short, reactive, emotionally present.
Exactly. Real responses are fast, and they match the energy of what was just said. They're not constructed, they're reactive.
And the same applies to agreement. A textbook response to agreement might be, "Yes, I concur with that point." And a real response is "Totally." Or "I know, right?" Or "Exactly. That is exactly it."
Or just, "Yeah," said with conviction. Yeah is not lazy. Said at the right moment with the right tone, it carries real weight.
And the response to bad news. A textbook response, "That is unfortunate to hear." A real response, "Oh no, I am sorry." Or "That is awful. Are you okay?"
The emotion lands in the words themselves, not in the grammatical structure around them.
Which is why fluency is not just grammar. It is timing, tone, and emotional accuracy.
The most important thing I want to say about sounding natural, and this might be the most counterintuitive, is that the goal is not to sound like a native speaker.
That surprises people.
It surprises people because most learners set that as the benchmark. I want to sound like a native speaker, but native speakers are not a uniform group. British English, American English, Australian English, Irish English, all of them sound different. All of them have different rhythms, different vocabulary, different informal structures.
And then within each of those, regional accents, generational differences, class differences, professional registers.
So there is no single target. The real goal is to sound like yourself, but in English, to express your actual personality, your actual humor, your actual way of thinking, through English, not despite it.
Because the most natural speakers are not the ones who have erased themselves and replaced themselves with an accent. They're the ones who have made the language their own.
And that takes time and input. A lot of listening, a lot of speaking without worrying too much about correctness, and a willingness to move toward real English. Messy, contracted, fillerful, emotionally present real English, rather than the clean version in the book.
Which, as it turns out, nobody actually speaks.
Nobody. Not even the people who wrote the book Time for the Word Tour. 6 words from today's conversation. All of them useful for talking about language, learning, and how English actually works.
Definition, natural example, mini dialogue, and an upgrade phrase for each one.
Word 1. Fluent. F-L-U-E-N-T. Adjective.
To be fluent in a language means to speak it smoothly, naturally, and with ease, without significant pausing or struggling to find words. Fluency is about flow, not perfection. You can be fluent and still make mistakes.
Example. After 2 years living abroad, her English had become genuinely fluent. Not perfect, but natural and effortless in a way that studying alone had never produced.
Mini dialogue. Would you say you are fluent in English?
I used to say no because my grammar is not perfect. But I started saying yes because fluent does not mean flawless. It means I can say what I mean when I mean it in a way that people understand and respond to naturally.
That is actually a more accurate definition than most people use.
It took me a while to get there.
Upgrade phrase. Instead of saying, "I speak English okay," try, "I would say I am conversationally fluent. My grammar is not always perfect, but I can hold my own in most situations without losing the thread."
Word 2. Informal. I-N-F-O-R-M-A-L. Adjective.
Informal language is relaxed, casual, and suited to everyday conversation rather than official or professional contexts. Informal does not mean incorrect. It means appropriate for a different register.
Example. The meeting was informal. No agenda, no presentations. Just a conversation over coffee about where the project was heading.
Mini dialogue. Is your workplace pretty formal?
Not at all. We are on first names. We message each other informally. Nobody wears a suit. But when we write to clients, the register shifts completely. Same people, very different language.
That shift is actually a really important skill.
Knowing which register to use and when, that is the mark of a sophisticated language user.
Upgrade phrase. Instead of saying casual, try, the tone in our office is very informal, but I have learned to shift registers quickly when the situation requires something more professional.
Word 3, colloquial. colloquial. Adjective.
Colloquial language is the informal, conversational language of everyday speech, including slang, idioms, contractions, and expressions that feel natural when spoken, but unusual when written formally.
Example. His English was textbook precise in writing, but colloquial and relaxed in conversation, which made him equally comfortable in meetings and at the pub.
Mini dialogue. I keep learning words that feel too formal for real conversations.
That is a very common experience. Academic English and colloquial English are almost two different skill sets. You need both, but most courses only teach one.
How do you learn the other one?
You listen. Podcasts, films, series, real conversations. The colloquial layer does not come from books.
Upgrade phrase. Instead of saying casual speech, try, I am working on my colloquial English. The expressions and rhythms that real speakers use in everyday conversation that never quite appear in textbooks.
Word 4, register. register. Noun.
Register is the level of formality in language, the style you choose based on the situation, the audience, and the relationship. High register is formal and professional. Low register is casual and personal.
Example, she instinctively shifted register depending on who she was talking to. Worn and loose with friends, precise and measured in client calls.
Mini dialogue. Why do you write such formal emails to your own team?
Old habit. I learned English in a very formal context and the register stuck. I'm still unlearning it.
What helps?
Reading how people I respect actually write informally. Seeing that the lower register is not less intelligent, just less guarded.
Upgrade phrase. Instead of saying how formal or casual something is, try, I am still developing my sense of register in English, knowing when to be precise and when to just be natural. It is more instinct than rule, and instinct takes time.
Word 5, idiom. idiom. Noun.
An idiom is a phrase whose meaning cannot be understood from the individual words alone. It is a fixed expression with a meaning that has developed through use. Idioms are one of the most recognizable features of natural, native-level speech.
Example, she knew the words, but not the idioms, so she understood the grammar of what people said, but kept missing the actual meaning.
Mini dialogue. Do you find idioms hard to learn?
Less hard to learn than hard to use naturally. I can memorize what bite the bullet means. Using it at exactly the right moment in a real conversation, that takes a different kind of practice.
Context is everything with idioms.
If you use the right idiom in the wrong moment, it sounds stranger than not using it at all.
Upgrade phrase. Instead of saying fixed expressions, try, I've been collecting idioms that fit naturally into the conversations I have most often. The goal is not to know every idiom. It is to own a small number of them completely.
Last word, word 6, nuance. Nuance. Noun.
Nuance is the subtle difference in meaning, tone, or feeling between things that seem similar. A language with nuance has many ways to say almost the same thing, each carrying a slightly different shade of meaning.
Example, the nuance between I am tired and I am exhausted and I am drained, all three mean low energy, but each one says something different about the kind and depth of that feeling.
Mini dialogue. How do you know which word to choose when there are so many options?
You feel it eventually. In the beginning, you choose the one you know. With more exposure, you start to feel the difference. The nuance becomes something you sense before you can explain it.
Is there a shortcut?
Exposure and attention. Read widely. Listen actively. Notice when a writer chooses one word when they could have chosen another. Ask yourself why.
Upgrade phrase. Instead of saying small differences in meaning, try. The nuance between those two words is something I am still developing a feel for. I understand them separately. I am still learning when one is more right than the other.
Add is the word tour for today. Fluent, informal, colloquial, register, idiom, nuance.
6 words that give you better language for talking about language itself, which is exactly the kind of English that makes you sound like a thoughtful, advanced speaker.
Let's close. We talked about what makes English sound natural versus textbook, and the answer is not more grammar. It is more exposure to real English as it's actually spoken.
We looked at contractions and reductions, filler words and discourse markers, informal grammar that real speakers use, and how natural responses work: fast, reactive, emotionally present.
And we talked about the most important thing. The goal is not to sound like a native speaker. The goal is to sound like yourself, but in English, to make the language yours.
The question of the week: what is one English phrase you learned in a textbook that turned out to be something nobody actually says? Leave it in the comments. In English, one example. We want to collect these.
If this episode helped your English today, if you followed along, noticed something new, or spent 12 minutes thinking in English, that is exactly what this podcast is for.
Please subscribe on YouTube, give this episode a like, and share it with someone who speaks very correct but very stiff English.
We will see you in the next episode. I'm Claire.
I am Ethan, and the next time you catch yourself about to say, "I would be delighted to accompany you," just say, "Yeah, sounds good. Trust me."
Real English Lounge. See you next time.
Your English journey doesn't end here.
Keep listening, keep learning, and keep speaking.
Choose your next conversation.
We'll see you in the next episode of Real English Lounge.